Ah, good old Persona pulls out of Japan. It's impossible to escape the salty reactions from overseas fans over stuff like the apparent snubbing of Ryuji and Kanji that we discussed last time. Except in this video, we're talking about not just the Japanese polls, but the recent results from China, Korea, and Southeast Asia as well. That's right, today we're talking about why the silent protagonists from Persona 3, Persona 4, and Persona 5 consistently take the top spot in all these regional polls. Now, if you're familiar with my other videos, you'd have heard that values dissonance is a major contributing factor to these differences in taste. A topic that means a lot to me, having grown up as fourth generation Japanese American on my dad's side. Meanwhile, my mom was born and raised in Japan. So in other words, I've witnessed and have experienced culture clashes since I was very young. My hope with these shorter videos is that they'll help foster a bit more understanding as to why there's such a discrepancy in audience taste when it comes to these polls, all in a more digestible, easy to understand manner. And just a couple disclaimers for this video. Firstly, the peoples of any particular country are not a complete monolith, nor am I saying that any one culture is inherently better than another. They're all just simply different. Which also brings me to another point I've mistakenly hoped would go without saying in my past videos. But it's absolutely true that yes, every Western country does have its own unique culture, and same goes for all the different countries that are in other regions of the world. However, there are also major similarities in worldview across all of Western society, namely countries that have a heritage stemming from classical Greece and ancient Rome, and Catholicism/Christianity having a major influence on institutions, since I'm primarily addressing a Western audience. But with all these disclaimers covered, we can finally get into how is it possible for the Protags to take the #1 spot every time? Surely it must be because they're so egotistical and love their self-inserts, am I right? Oh, I know. How can they like these bland silent Protags when actual characters exist? Well, actually, these reactions highlight this fundamental difference and resulting misunderstanding in how Asian cultures generally view the self, or the ego. In other words, essentially what makes you, you. You see, the difference in the Western and Eastern concept of the ego is in large part due to Christian and Buddhist thought, respectively. Now, some of you may be thinking, most developed or developing countries have been leaning increasingly secular in the postmodern world, so would these religions really make that much of a difference? And, well, the answer is yes, because the past century doesn't take away from the legit millennias of philosophical influence Christianity and Buddhism has had on our respective societies, each playing a role in inspiring the more individualistic view of the self in the West and the more collectivist take on it in Asia. So how does Christianity play a role in establishing the significance of individual persons? Well, in the Bible, the self is an incredibly defined thing. Every single person is made in the image of God, and God made every single person unique, with their own individual purpose, seen in verses like, "I know the plans I have for you," as well as in "love your neighbor as yourself." As a result, there's a big emphasis on self-confidence, self-esteem, self-assurance, and so on in the West. Additionally, people/characters in the Bible have very distinct traits and character arcs. And even God the Father and God the Son, aka Jesus, have very defined individual characteristics themselves. Just the concept of an all-powerful monotheistic God alone supports the importance of the individual, which is in stark contrast to overall Buddhist beliefs. Buddhism is not a theistic tradition. There is no creator god, Nor is there an absolute explicit evil like the devil. Instead, it's the ego or the self that's the cause of suffering. The reasoning behind this is that if you become intimately connected to it, then it becomes the most important thing in the entire universe. You then judge things only by how it affects yourself, which leads you to develop certain attachments and aversions to things that are otherwise ephemeral in life. I like this and I don't like that. I love this and need it to be happy, or I fucking hate this. Since Buddhist thought purports that all things are transient, or in other words, circumstances will always change, a truly definitive self is a fictional thing. So letting yourself become enslaved to this thing just leads to more unnecessary suffering. The answer, then, is distancing yourself from the ego, letting go of attachment to the self. Fostering this literal selflessness allows one to open up to others outside of the self and to cultivate a love and compassion for all living beings. Since the nature of reality is suffering and all things will encounter it, we should all be supporting each other. All these ideas together result in the Buddhist concept referred to as the non-self, something that's well reflected in the protagonists of Persona 3 through Persona 5. At their base, they are perceived as empty, especially via their silence, yet they are also compassionate and selfless as depicted in doing the social links and side requests. Finally, they understand the fundamental nature of reality and our reason for living, basically connecting to their social links and supporting one another in their collective suffering. Though none of the protags are complete blank slates, they do have their own subtle but distinct personalities, which are particularly highlighted when juxtaposing the true and bad endings respectively. That eventual future video will be up in the cards once it's done, but anyway, the scholar and psychologist who actually opened up Japan to Jung's ideas, Hayao Kawai, recognized their connections to the Buddhist non-self, with Jung himself having been deeply influenced by Eastern philosophy. But now that we've covered how the protags embody this non-self, I think we can tackle why many from the West sorta misconstrue how players in Asia quote-unquote self-insert in the first place. You see, those of us who've been raised in more individualistic cultures, where individuality is prioritized over belonging to the group, tend to view the concept of self as an avocado pit. We see our own pit as unique and as our innermost being, leading to this emphasis on self-expression and even distinguishing ourselves from others, which is especially true for Americans, making sure our own opinion and voice is heard and whatnot. But that's not really the case for most of Asia. Now, it's not that Asian people aren't different from each other. Of course they are, and there's all kinds of personalities and different tastes within these countries' populations. But the actual difference to Western cultures lies in how there's no significance attached to differentiating oneself from others. The differences just simply are. Overall, the concept of self is one of the most fundamental assumptions shared in any given culture, and one we take for granted, leading to us normally not even realizing when a country has a vastly different understanding of it from our own. So in most Asian cultures, the ego is understood not as an independent entity, but a relational one. Research finds that the Eastern concept of self doesn't really exist separate from other people, but is instead interdependent on the surrounding community. This in turn affects how self-expression is understood in the first place. So going back to the topic of choice I mentioned earlier, this is one of the major ways in which Westerners express themselves, with Americans especially valuing the freedom to choose, and get this, to care about what they choose. Interestingly enough, in studies done where a person had to choose between two objects, European American participants tended to increase their liking for the chosen object compared to the one they didn't. They tend to view choices as reflective of their innermost being. But for East Asian participants, the choice-making didn't impact their overall liking of the two objects. And overall, the study found that expression of their internal opinions was given much less importance. Instead, they felt more secure when others, and themselves, acknowledged and could see their social roles, status, and relationships, which helps explain why the power of friendship and overall ensemble achievements are such a staple in Japanese and other Asian storytelling. So to return to the supposed self-insert aspect of the persona protagonists, this isn't really the important part. I mean, given all we discussed about cultural differences, there's a reason why the choices in JRPGs, if they even exist, hardly make a difference in the first place. While on the contrary, dialogue and side quest options in Western RPGs oftentimes have a huge impact on the story and possible endings because many Westerners see them as a means to exercise self-expression. The qualities of the persona protags that actually seem significant to Asian audiences are how relational they are with the entire rest of the cast. That they are very fluid personalities, which allows them to easily understand others, grasp their situation, and meet this huge variety of people where they are at. Many foreigners may view this fluidity as blandness, but the fact the protags aren't trying to make themselves stand out and instead are focusing on connecting with other characters is a value just much more appreciated, or at the very least understood, in Asia. But with all this said, I'm aware that I simplified otherwise very nuanced cultures and ideas for the sake of this video's topic. And again, there's always going to be people from these respective cultures that don't agree with the overall sentiment. Additionally, it's not like Christianity and Buddhism are the only things of great historical influence here. Mesopotamian and Greek thought are relevant in the development of Western culture, just as Confucian, Taoist, and other Eastern philosophies played a role in Asian societies. And these philosophies themselves are a product of their culture. Influence is not a one-way street. It'll be interesting to see how this perception of self changes in future research, given how prominent globalization is now, especially with the rise of social media in the 2010s. Perhaps someday I'll do a much more in-depth video on all these ideas, but for now I've included links to further readings and sources if you're interested in the description. Anyway, if you're from a region of the world that I didn't focus on in this video, I'd love to hear how you view this topic of the self. Though I'd also love to hear from those of you in Asia and of course the Western countries. Ultimately, I just hope this video was insightful, so please like and subscribe if it was, check out all my other persona analyses, and if you love what I do and have the means, I'd really appreciate the support on Patreon. Speaking of, I want to thank all of you who are already supporting me, especially Big Clingy, Sam Bezjak, Francisco Santoyo Rego, Platinum Rose, Malcolm Lowry, Unholy Biscuit, Peter Shepard, and Andy.